how can I stay consistent for long periods of time? Sometimes feel like go through more fluctuation that stops my momentum, and I'm a big believer in momentum. I think momentum is what pushes a rocket out of the atmosphere. It doesn't just run for 20 minutes, take a break, and then go again.
All right, folks, we are back again with another episode of Undeniable One-on-One. As always, this series is dedicated to you, the remote sales professional. We are going to break free from the generic one-size-fits-all training that's out there, giving everybody the same advice, no matter what their situation. And we're going to showcase the power of personalized mentorship and counterintuitive advice. And today we have an amazing guest. This person I've had the honor of working with for a very long time. And I can't say enough good things about him. Someone who's extremely self-aware, extremely accountable and responsible. He's never making excuses. He's never hiding from the fact that there's areas to improve. We all know it, right? But some people try and hide from it. They try and blame other people. They try and make excuses. This has been one of the most accountable, aware students that we've had. He's climbed the ranks. He's done everything that we set out to do in Undeniable a long time ago, and he's still always thirsting for more knowledge, more development, more understanding of himself, the industry, and new ventures. And so I'm very excited to have Ali, another alumni of ours. Ali, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate you.
Of course, brother. Of course, I wouldn't miss it for the world. And you make me feel bad, man. I definitely make excuses here and there, but I appreciate all the kind words. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you and having you in my corner. I appreciate it.
Well, it's good that you just don't make them. Maybe you just don't make them around me, which is good, right? But that's it, man. There's always room for improvement, right? But it's, you've always done what you need to do and put the work in. And when you feel yourself slipping, you reach out and we build, and that's life, right? You're not going to have a constant upstream, right? But when you have fell down, you picked yourself up, you put in the work, and that's what I look for, right? It's not a life where you don't fall. It's how many times you're willing to pick yourself up. So that being said, what are we talking about today? What can I help you with? Where do you want to explore?
So, something that's occupying my mind these days is how can I stay consistent for long periods of time? Sometimes feel like go through more fluctuation that stops my momentum, and I'm a big believer in momentum. I think momentum is what pushes a rocket out of the atmosphere. It doesn't just run for 20 minutes, take a break, and then go again.
Mm,
Um, Also, I'm a sport fanatic, and I believe if I, maybe I'm wrong, maybe not, but I believe like when I look at soccer players or different sportsmen, I look at them show up at the training the same time. They have the recovery, they have the routine, they have their fun, but
mm,
it is consistent. And for the people who show up and they don't fuck up themselves with drug or whatever, they
mm.
tend to stay on high regards in all aspects of life. So I'm trying to achieve that in my business ventures,
Mm.
and that's something that I want to focus on today.
Yeah, it's, um, there's certain things when I started as a mentor, I figured I would get, right? Obviously, how to land a job, how to improve performance. I was surprised at how often momentum and consistency come up. I was really surprised at how much desire and how many people struggle with it. So I'm really, really happy you brought those up because I think they're such important topics, and it's something that we all have felt in our lives. I kind of have a different approach to looking at it, in that I look at momentum and I look at consistency as results, and they're also kind of conflicting results in a way. They work together, they work in tandem, but consistency is having the same things, right? So in your business right now, it's probably, where you're at right now, you probably don't want consistent results. You want more of the momentum, right? Because like if I said, oh, you could have the day you had today every day for the rest of your life, you'd be like, I don't want that, right? But that's consistency, right? So you said something that's really important in that these athletes, these high achievers, they have a level of consistency, but The consistency is not in the results. The consistency is not the focus. It's the result of what they're focusing on. And you touched on it. It's habits and routines, right? That they're doing the same things, but the end goal is not consistency. The end goal is more trajectory, right? And so when we're looking at momentum, when we're looking at consistency, we have to look at it kind of like an equation, right? And that typically we crave momentum and consistency when we don't have it. But when we have it, we kind of forget about it. And so we have to look at a couple things. One, we are going to fall. Like I talked about in the beginning of this call, you will fall. You will drop off. You will have a bad day. You might even have a bad week. There will be things pulling you outside. You'll have a lack of motivation, inspiration. The drive will be gone at times. Like we know that the emotional roller coaster is not going to stop. Right? So knowing that and being able to look back in our life and predict the patterns that we've seen, and that this is not, people don't come to me the first time they lose consistency or the first time they lose momentum. If we look back in your life, there is a pattern, right? And what I'm looking at, and something I kind of learned through therapy that actually applies really well to remote sales, is actually a harm reduction. We are not going to remove the emotions. We're not going to remove the failures. We're not going to remove the mistakes. And we're not going to remove the times where we're just not all there, right? We're going to fall down. So instead of being surprised by it, or instead of putting unreal expectations that only puts more pressure and tends to cause us to fail even more, I'm going to look at harm reduction. And there's two things that are really important in harm reduction. One, how long we can stay on. And two, how quickly we can get back on. And I think the second is so important. A lot of times when we fall off, what happens? More negative emotions, right? The guilt, the shame, the judgment. Why am I like this? Why does this always happen? Why can't I stay on? And what does that do? Right? It pulls us away from being able to get back on. If I fall down and I look and say, oh, I fell, and my only goal is to see how quickly I can get back on, it doesn't make sense to do all this hyper analysis and judgment and blame. That only pulls me back from where I want to be. So if I fall down, it's really a matter of how quickly can I become aware, which you have great awareness, right? Sometimes you ignore it, right? Because we want to punish ourselves, and we all have weapons of self-sabotage and self-belief and all of those things, right? And again, those aren't going away either, right? So if we simplified it and said, what does on feel like for you? You felt on, I've seen you on, right? And I've seen you on for an extended period, right? Let's classify that. Let's be able to be aware of what that looks like, what that feels like. How do we know we're on? Right? Now, if we know what on looks like, we should be able to identify what off looks like, right? And if we're checking in and we're tracking and we're paying attention, and we're trying to not eliminate falling off, but catching it as quickly as possible. How quickly can you catch yourself? Because I bet you the times that you fell off for an hour didn't have any impact. Probably if you fall off a day, don't really notice it, right? If you're on 10, 12, 15 days in a row and you fall off one day, you're not losing momentum, right? But it's a week on, a week off. That's going to hurt the momentum. That's going to hurt the consistency. That's going to hurt the results, right? And so I think first, classifying what on is and bringing that to your awareness, understanding what that feels like, what that looks like, so you know what it looks like and where it is. And then classifying what is off. How do you know? And what are the earlier signs of being off? That in itself, tracking, was I on today or was I off today, right? Like starting the day, am I on or am I off? Ending the day, was I on, was I off? Like implementing more tracking will allow you to catch things earlier, like anything else, right? The tracking will allow you to improve. Then it's about how you respond to being off, right? Okay, I'm starting to notice myself slip, or I've already slipped. Okay, isolate, right? This is not a judgment, not a blame. My only job is to get on. Nothing else. I don't have to diagnose. I don't have to go in this spiral. Just how quickly can I get back on? Now what you're going to do is you're going to have to create a blueprint for getting on, right? So The problem that we have is when we're so addicted to being productive because it's like, okay, I finally have it. Like, let's just work. If you take a couple extra moments and some time to reflect and say, I feel good, I feel motivated, I feel inspired. How did I get here? What I want to do is I want to create a blueprint. Maybe it's a certain thought process. Maybe it's a new goal, a new focus, a new motivation. Maybe it's the right amount of sleep or a good gym session. But there's certain things that get me on. I want to build that blueprint because I want to be able to get back on easily and quickly. At the same time, oh, I fell off. Okay, great. What happened? I was on yesterday. I'm off today. What happened? So if I have a blueprint for getting back on, and I also have a understanding of the triggers that allow me to fall off, now all of a sudden what I can do is limit the time. And so again, all I'm doing is extending the time I'm on. These are the things that keep me going, right? And limiting the time that I'm off. Very simple, but you have to now develop the discipline to catch those things early and be aware and not let them extend. It's the extended vacations that hit you, right? So all I'm doing as far as diagnosing goes is if it's what I call chronic. So if once a week for an hour I feel down, I'm not diagnosing that. I'm not wasting any time with that. I can balance that, right? If it's 500 hours on and 1 hour off, not a big deal. But all of a sudden, if the frequency at which I'm falling off happens more, or I'm having harder and harder time with the extension of being off. Now I'm going to diagnose from a place of improvement. What's happening? What's happening in my life? What are the patterns between the last time? Right. And what I've noticed with people that value consistency and momentum, the problem is once they get to where they want to be, they take their foot off the gas. It's really strange, but it's like, okay, everything's working. I'm making the money I want to make. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And when things are going good, they change their perspective from offense to defense. If you ask those athletes, they're in constant pursuit. Their routines and their habits and their discipline stays consistent, but they want to be better. They're thirsty. They want another championship. They want to lead the league in scoring. They always are striving for something higher, better, faster. The problem is when we get to a certain spot, we're like, okay, momentum, consistency, protect it. And it's like holding water in your hands, like it's just dripping through, right? Because the same thing that got you to be consistent was not focusing on consistent. It was focused on effort and pursuit and drive and motivation and what your dreams would be like when you accomplish them, right? Like the pursuit of something big allows you to be consistent with your effort. But focusing on consistency in itself and momentum, it gets you focusing on the wrong thing. It's like focusing on a sale, right? You know, when you get on a call and you focus on the sale, everything falls to shit. But if you
Mhm.
start focusing on the efforts and the presence and all the things that add up to a sale, the result is the sale. It's the same thing with momentum and consistency. You have to have a big, hairy, audacious goal that fucking excites you and frightens you. I've seen it. When you are excited about something, you're unstoppable. When you're trying not to fuck up, all you do is fall like everybody else, right? So you have to have something that you feel like will make your life significantly better, and it has to hurt that you don't have it. You and I both know, right? And hey, Kitty, you and I both know that you're not playing up to your standard. You're not playing up to your potential, right? That's not, I'm talking to everybody who's listening to this, right?
Yeah.
Like anyone here who thinks they're at their potential, you're lying to yourself, right? Your life could be significantly better, right? Your relationships could be significantly better. Your bank account could have additional zeros. You could be the person that people come to when they're in trouble and they know that you got them. You could be taking care of the people around you. You could feel so much significance because you have something that not everybody has. Not everybody has the same potential as you, right? And you either use it now and you put that intensity of saying, how fucking high can I climb? Not to a point of safety, not to a point of like, okay, I'm doing good enough, but you have one
Yeah.
life and you can pursue and reach the penthouse, or you can hang out on the first floor. And I've seen you pursue the penthouse and I've seen you hang out on the first floor, and you're never like, you're never going to be able to manage hanging out at the first floor because you're not a first floor person. You're someone that knows deeply that you could operate at the penthouse level, and anything less than that is only going to get you down. And when you're playing safe, you're not going to be motivated. So you're going to be distracted and you're going to go for the vices and you're going to go for this. I've been there. I played the safe game and it's not built for us. And so then we're like, why doesn't this work? Why am I not doing this? Because we're not stretching ourselves to a point where I feel like I'm going like a fucking rocket ship. And like you were built to explore, you were built to climb, you were built to be in pursuit and challenges. And when you don't have it, you create it for yourself. When you're not challenging yourself, you create difficulty. You
Mm-hmm.
create adversity because your
Mm-hmm.
mind and your body wants to be challenged. They want the tough workouts. They want the business problem. It's inconvenient. It's uncomfortable, but that's part of your burden. So I've seen it when you don't have those challenges, when you aren't in pursuit, your brain is like, okay, let's create the challenge. Let's create the problem. Let's create the adversity. And your brain was meant to solve problems, not create them. And so you have to ask yourself, am I aiming high enough or am I trying not to lose? Pursuit? Am I challenging myself? Do I wake up and feel like, holy shit, I don't have enough time to get everything in, but I'm going after it. I'm not just trying to do something for the sake of doing it. And that might mean making some changes. That might mean making adjustments to your plan. Maybe your plan doesn't excite you enough because you're thinking like this would be good, but is it great? And is it you? And does it fuel you where every day you're like, I got no fucking time to waste. I need every ounce of my being to make this work because I'm going for it. And I think you're someone that needs to roll those dice and go hard. And when there's things that are just chores, you're just not going to do them. Right. So maybe it has nothing to do with the momentum and the consistency, but designing a life that fires you up in pursuit and it stings every day that you don't make a step towards it. Right? It might be time to start thinking bigger picture.
Wow. Wow. You hit a lot of things on the head, brother. A lot of things. Thank you. Thank you for that. I want to touch on a few things if it's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So some of them I've already thought about and even have analogies and definitions for them, and it actually hit me maybe a week or two ago with my business partner that I was telling him, "Wow, we actually have a real chance at greatness in
Mhm.
life." And this is the first time that it really hit me. I was like, holy shit, I never had the chance to become a musician. They didn't have the support, didn't have the talent, didn't go
Right,
after it. I didn't have the support to become an athlete. I love it. I still play it, but it's too late for me. I'm 30.
right,
People are starting at their 5.
right.
But at this business thing and leaving a mark on earth, helping other people, being a role model for my brother, helping other men, we actually have a real chance at greatness, being the top 1%, being the top 5%. And not everybody has this opportunity. We're, I don't know, we're speaking English, we're in North America, we have UCM, we have YouTube, like not everybody has this.
Right.
So that's the first thing that it actually hit me not too long ago that we have a real chance at this. It's still hard, but we should be just praying for it every day that we part of that group that has the real chance at this.
100%. And before you add the second, I would even challenge that and take it a step further that greatness is your destiny and it's yours to lose. Not only like, I don't think you having a chance is, I think that's an understatement, a huge understatement. I believe that greatness is your destiny and you can choose to live it or fuck it up. Like it's not like you're rolling the dice and it could work out or it could not. Like it's yours to let go and it's yours to live in regret if you don't live it out to your potential, but it's already there. Right? Some people it's on the fence, maybe they make it, maybe they don't. They're right on the cusp. You have everything that you need and I feel like it's predetermined. All you have to do is go get it, but it's yours to lose. It's not yours to maybe get, right? And I think just taking that a step further, imagine that greatness is there waiting. It's whether or not you show up. That's it.
I love it. I love it. Couldn't agree
What else
more.
you
But
got?
it was really interesting that you brought it up because it hit me not too long ago. The second thing was I definitely have awareness around creating problems when I'm not shooting for the stars. I feel like a gladiator or a football player or a, I don't know, MMA fighter who's just
Yeah.
seeking the action, seeking to
Right.
fight, seeking the challenges, seeking to perform, seeking to, just woo, just say
Right.
iha and just fight for life. And
Yeah.
for a reason or another, or confusion or uncertainty, whatever it is, sometimes when not the right challenges are in front of me, not the right puzzles are in front of me, or maybe I fall into a bad rabbit hole, I definitely seek it. That I'm like a Ferrari who's just parked in the fucking
Right.
garage, but it's seeking to be on the fucking, like a
100%.
NASCAR thing going 300
Yeah.
kilometers per hour. So I definitely feel that as well.
Yes. And I think that one's really important. I relate to that, and I think a lot of people can, right? What I've noticed is there's kind of two sides, right? I think you and me are similar on that side. There's also the analytical people, right? And so I think we're meant to be challenged. It's part of our evolution. We're meant to have desires. We're meant to go through difficult things, right? The problem is we can get into the monotony, and this is where habits and routines can actually kind of go against someone that has that lifestyle and someone that has those pursuits. Is you need to constantly be putting adversity in your life. And that doesn't have to be business adversity. It can be anything, like doing difficult things, whether it's physically difficult things, maybe joining a jujitsu class, starting dancing, whatever it is, right? Like I think you're someone that is good when you suck at something and you're looking up at all the different levels because you don't like, when I've seen it, you don't like to suck. None of us do, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, now I'm in that pursuit. And what that does is it lights that fire again. So sometimes the monotony of like, oh, I'm pretty good at this, I'm pretty good at that, I can handle that. And when you can handle the day, all of a sudden the intensity drops, right? And it can be the sauna, it can be the ice bath, it can be jujitsu, it can be chess, it can be a new venture, it can be a new class, it can be something you're learning, artistry, music, it can be anything. But I think you're supposed to suck. I think you're supposed to be challenged. I think you're supposed to deal with adversity on a daily basis. I think it's humbling and it lights a fire, and you're like, I don't want to be bad at that anymore. I think you need to be doing those things, whether it's physical, mental, emotional. I think you need to be putting new challenges and not just sometimes, especially in a new business, we're like, okay, once I get that to a certain level, then I'll add those. I don't think you can do that. I've seen it in that you need that lifestyle balance. But I think that you've done a much better job from when I first met you of balancing the pleasures and the pursuits. I think the next thing to get consistent is balance the planned adversity, balance the challenges, take on something where you are beginner level zero and you're constantly pursuing that. I like the idea of like a jujitsu or something like that, like a chess, something where you're like, oh man, there's so many levels to this and I'm at ground zero again. And when you
Yeah.
get good at that, add something else in, right? Like again, if we don't have adversity, life puts adversity in. And I can tell you,
Hmm.
and you know from experience, the planned adversity is much better than life's version of adversity. But I think that's part of our evolution is we need to have difficult things in our life. That's why I think we like relationships, even though sometimes they drive us crazy, because it keeps us on our toes and keeps things fresh and it gives us that variety. And when we solve certain puzzles, it gives us significance and it
Yes.
makes us feel, I think we're big pleasure seekers, but we need pain in our life. We need it to hurt. We need to suffer a little bit. We need, because that's part of the human experience and that makes us feel alive. And so I think
Yes.
planning the adversity, whether it's putting bigger goals or challenging yourself or just adding in those few little things, I think makes a huge difference.
Or as Goggins says, chosen suffering over unchosen
Right.
suffering.
100%. Yeah, you're gonna like life involves suffering. It's on your terms or it's on life terms, and by design is better than by default, right? And so I think part of you has been playing a little safe, right? And I don't think you're built for playing safe, right? I think you need to shake things up, snow globe it a little bit, and mix it up and create some adversity and get yourself feeling. Because even though it's not always desirable, what it does is it makes you feel alive, right? And I think you need to have more of a full life as far as that adversity, that challenge, that pursuit. I really do.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more, brother. I couldn't agree more. There's nowhere else that, nothing else that gives me the feeling of aliveness after a couple of hours of snowboarding or a good sauna session or working
Right.
or soccer, that chosen suffering. Yeah, those are a little bit more fun than maybe
Right.
cold
Because you're
calling
good
100
at them now.
people. Yeah.
Right. So now it's like, okay, those things now become fun because that's what happens. Once you get good at it, it becomes now a different category. And you're like, oh, my suffering, but it's a different level because you're enjoying it and you feel like I'm at a different level. I think you have to have a conveyor belt of what is the new thing that you're starting at zero.
Yeah. Yeah, and another tool that I'm these days exploring a little bit more seriously, I've always known about it, but now I'm just trying to use it consistently, is breath work,
Mm,
which is gonna help me to de-residue my head. I'm sure you remember that I always told you about my mushroom trips and how
hmm.
it give me this
Yeah.
zen mind after
Right.
5 hours of dealing with your own shit.
Right.
But it's not sufficient to do that all the time, but
No.
I think I prefer to get high on my own chemical with the use of breath work,
100%.
which de-residues me.
Right, of course. I think each person has to find out what that is for them. And I think, like, I know a lot of people that have had amazing experiences, but the problem is you can't go back to that well eh, the same way every time. So, for example, like if you take a certain drug and it makes you feel that way, your goal should be to try and get there as close. Like it shows you what's possible, but some people escape or depend on that. What I would imagine is like, okay, that's what I want to feel. Maybe I can't get there, but how close can I get? What can I do to bring that in every day? And I feel like the meditation, the breath work, like all of these things, right? The gratitude, like I can get pieces of it. I may not be able to get all the way there, but
Yeah.
how close can I get in everyday life? And then go back to that well when you need, a new chapter, right? Because that's not sustainable, but it's like, how can I take those principles and execute them on a day-to-day life?
I love it. I love it. And I've also gotten away a little bit from the classics of self-development, which is maybe vision boards and all of that. Do you feel like, because when I went past the first phase of my goals, which is scheduling my own time, making six figures, doing sales, being around entrepreneurs, some of those things that were a little bit exciting that kind of faded away. Do you think there's a next level of doing those type of things, or just
Always,
sticking to the classics and doing them?
always. No, there's always a next level, but I think what I'm getting a sense from you is like I said, we achieve a lot of what we accomplished to do, right? Everything that when I remember first chatting with you, like you hit those milestones, and that's great. But this is a stepping stone, and sometimes we camp out on a stepping stone. Like what I
Yeah.
would what I would do instead of a vision board, I would do an impossible board. I would put things on there that you think are impossible. What is an impossible amount of money, right? Like, is it $100 million, right? Is it $1 billion? Is it 500 million? Like, what is the money where your brain is like, all right, that's just like a novelty amount of money, right? I would put that on, right? Like, what's important to you? Is it, like having your own helicopter and being able to hella snowboard out? And that's just like, it seems so far away that it's almost impossible. Like, I would forget about the goals, right? Because you know that if you continue to do what you do, you'll live a comfortable life. Like, you're at a point now where you know that, like, from here on out, you're going to be good. Like, you're not going to, like, you may not get what you want if you don't pursue it, if you don't really plan it, if you don't step up for yourself, but like, you're not going to be eaten out of a dumpster, right? Like, the safety is there. You have a very transferable skill. You know when to dial it up. You know that it won't drop before, like, below a certain point. I
Yeah.
think, like, what I would like to do is take that vision board and make it a fucking impossible board. Like things that really challenge your brain and kind of get those limiting beliefs coming back up. The same limiting beliefs you had when you were starting out. Like you've come so far where you think a lot of things are possible and nothing, like you said, like the destiny of greatness is there. Like, what do you think you can't do? What do you think you don't have enough time to do? What do you think is out of the realm of possibility for you? Right? Like, put that on a board and start planning and playing with those ideas and figure out how you could make those things work. That's what I would be excited to see.
Yeah, as you're thinking about all, as you were saying all of that, the thing is maybe my brain is playing games with me, but it's hard to look for that because I'm at the point in my life that I know if I'm dedicated, everything is possible. Maybe the money part is the only thing that comes to mind. Maybe I don't want to be a billionaire and that's going to be impossible to get to 10 billion, but everything else in my mind is almost possible. Maybe that's an
Mhm.
issue. I don't know.
No, it's great. Start playing with the timeline, right? So if I said 100 million, you might be like, yeah, that's doable. But if I said 100 million in the next 6 weeks, right? Then it would be like, okay, that's an issue, right?
Yeah.
So if it's, I want a 26 bedroom house in the mountains of Switzerland, right? And you're like, yeah, I could do that. Now put the timeline that you seems impossible, right? If I said that same 26 bedroom house in the next 2 years, maybe all of a sudden that starts to like,
Mm,
does the timeline change the feeling?
definitely.
Okay,
Definitely.
so pick out the things that is like a vision board, your dream, your next level, right? And it's bigger than you want, bigger than you need. Don't justify like, oh, I don't need that. Like just go big in the areas that you want. Now play around with the timeline and that will up the intensity, right? Like if 100 million doesn't scare you, how would you do 100 million in 5 years? Right? If the 26 bedroom house seems possible, how would you have that house paid off in the next 5 years? Like play around with the timeline and that intensity, because once you get that feeling, right, you want to challenge that impossibility. But I think just aim higher, faster, better, like fuck momentum and consistency, get in pursuit, get hungry, get that adversity, get the challenge, start at zero again and start sprinting.
Okay. Okay, that sounds like a plan. I definitely have to get back to this video and write down a few more notes, but the vision board, at least the impossible board is one of the action plans out of this
Beautiful.
call.
Absolutely, man. Just, go back to the basics. Imagine you're starting at zero again and you got to climb, right? Like imagine you wake up, the bank account is empty, the business has to start again, like everything, like start in that deficit again. Because when you tap into that hunger, you're unstoppable. But it's just reevaluating, getting back into what gets you on and moving again. But yeah, I think that's a good place to end it. Hopefully that inspired a few people. I think there's a lot of common traits here and things that we all struggle with at times. But if what you're doing is not firing you up and it's not there anymore, like again, we all have our days. I don't wake up every day just amped up. But if what I'm working towards doesn't give me the same juice, like it doesn't mean I'm going to change direction. But what I'm going to do is put something beyond that. And that's when I start working. I want the intensity. I want the urgency. I want those things I can draw off of. And I want to not be comfortable with the things that I don't have. I want to weigh that burden of potential so it pushes me forward. And I think you have all of those things in place. So hopefully everybody gets some value out of this. Please let me know in the comments section what you thought about this. If there's any topics that you would like me to cover on a future episode, and make sure you subscribe for next week's episode. Appreciate y'all. Thanks a lot, Ali, for joining us, and so honored to be a part of your journey. Can't wait to see what's next, man.
All right, that's it. I want to thank you for watching today, and I hope you received some value from this training session. Make sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell icon to be notified when we release the next training session. If you would like to be featured on a future training session, make sure to join our remote sales community on Facebook. I'll leave a link in the description. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover on a future training session, just leave a comment below. Appreciate you. Onwards and upwards.